Hello everyone, welcome back. We're playing 428 Shibuya Cake. I'm here with Yoshi.
Hey, what's up, folks? It's called, most people don't know this. It's actually called a Shibuya Scramble.
Oh, oh yeah, I guess I misspoke. Um, but yeah, we are in the midst of the final hour.
Oh yeah,
Do you recall what
stuff's getting
happened last
real.
time?
No,
There were a
I
couple of
don't.
bad ends. We played as our new buddies, Tateno and Jack. He goes by Stanley. I don't know why they call him Jack on the menu.
That's a lot of characters for Jack. It's like
Gia.
more than one character per letter. Jaku?
Jack.
Is that what that says?
Jack. Yeah. Because there's no Ja, so they need that little Ya next to the
Uh,
G. So it goes Ja. And then if they didn't have that other little one next to the Ku, it'd be Jaku. So you need it to make it like a hard K. Jaku.
yeah, so you speak Japanese now.
Thanks.
That's not. That wasn't a compliment. It was an observation, I guess. I mean, you've been there for like 3 years. I'm not impressed that you're learning the language.
So
Four
basically what
years? You've been there for quite a while.
Yeah, I've been there for quite a while. Here in Japan. Um, there are a lot of explosions. So, Achi and Kano exploded back here when they confronted
Oh
Alphard.
yeah, we went to the lab.
But Tateno and Stanley went to the lab, and Tateno blew up, and Stanley saw that the lab was blown up, and he said no for he held it out for 10 seconds. And everyone else is at an end point. So,
Oh yeah, and we're stuck.
we're gonna have to change some decisions. I believe the decisions we have to change are with Stan.
Okay.
Mainly his thought process. Because Sateno's is... What is Sateno's choices? Talking to Kuze and driving into... How to drive through a roadblock.
In 30 days.
How to drive through a roadblock in 30 days. Yeah. So...
Oh, 10 days. 10 days? How to
is
lose
it
a cake in
is
10
it
days?
is it 80 around the cake in 80 days?
Alright, so we're going with Jack's reasoning.
Yeah, so there are just two. Looks like there's two of his decision thinking. Wow, he thought for like 30 minutes before he did something. I feel like
Well, you know what
that's
they say about these like gruff American meathead FBI types. Some people say they're not very smart.
so I don't know. I don't remember the exact like reasonings from when I last played this. Um. Oh yeah, yeah. So what we can do is
See?
when we can like kind of skim forward and see when we made this choice to create an alibi. Um, there is this like this mention where it's like where you said you made the wrong choice or something,
Alright.
and you said you'll try choosing the right choice this time. So he's thinking about Daisuke Alphard approached Daisuke to kidnap
Yeah.
this girl, and he was wondering why.
Say to carry out some other objective.
Let's try this. To carry out some other objective. He'd set up the kidnapping, devised the ransom relay, and kept the full attention of the police on that. All the while, Alphard himself was working towards his true goal, getting Hitomi's blood. Which meant that Daisuke kidnapping Maria by mistake had in fact been a misstep. That was why, in the end, Alphard had proposed trading the password for Hitomi's blood. Could that really be it? He decided to take it up with the man himself. Alright. Doesn't look like things have changed, but we'll go to this next decision point, where the question is, what had Alphard planned to do with Maria if nobody had broken in the electronic warehouse where she was being held in?
Right. So what did we say? He's gonna kill her. Oh
Yeah, we
man,
said he
that's
was
what I was
gonna
gonna
kill
say
her.
this time.
And
Well, so if he wants Hitomi's blood, he's gonna trade it for Hitomi.
that's true.
Going with B, final answer.
Let's see if this changes
I
things.
would take your hesitation to mean that I'm correct.
I have no idea. He was going to trade her for Hitomi. It certainly seemed reasonable enough. He needed to kidnap Maria in order to infect her with the virus first and foremost, and she had been injected with it at 8 o'clock that morning. Next, Alphard would have carried out a hostage exchange for Hitomi in order to obtain her blood. Maria would be free to go, but infected with Ua. What purpose would that serve? It was simple enough to deduce. Once he learned that Maria had the virus, Kenji Osawa was certain to take action. He would bring her into the storage facility in order to administer the antiviral, just as he'd done with Hitomi. That meant the storage facility would be opened once more. That was what Alphard was really after. A way in, so he could destroy the antiviral samples at the lab. It was the only logical conclusion. Infecting Hitomi 6 days earlier had ensured that she would be carrying the DDS in her body, but it had also served as a sort of dry run for today. If it turned out that Osawa wasn't able to access the antiviral storage on his own, the entire plan would fall apart. Hitomi had been a test case in order to make sure. The negotiations at the Scramble were almost certainly a smokescreen. Alphard wanted to lure Stanley, the others, to the Scramble in order to clear the way for an assault on the lab in the meantime. There should probably be an and there.
Yeah, make an and.
Stanley, the others, and to the Scramble. The first order of business was to stop him from getting inside. But how? Should Stanley leave the stakeout at the Scramble for Kano and the others while he headed to the lab himself? He couldn't decide that alone. He headed back to the shop. Let's see. Wait. Okay, it looks like nothing has changed.
Nothing changed. Wait, but wasn't that the correct conclusion? That the negotiations at the Scramble were a smokescreen and he wanted to distract that while he destroyed the antivirals at the lab?
Yeah. I will say though, when you do the right reasoning, like another thing pops up.
Alright, let's try again. I think some of the choices will be narrowed down to one, which should be good for us.
Yeah, but I wonder if it's like a combination as well.
Oh. Alright, well let's try this one. Keep his
Alright.
true identity secret. He's not Leland Palmer, the English teacher.
To keep his true identity secret, Alphard needed someone completely unrelated to him. A stooge like Daisuke, who, even if they were arrested, wouldn't be able to lead the way back to the mastermind. Was that the thinking here? No. The fact was that as soon as Daisuke was caught, he'd spilled everything about the organ trafficker. That was a predictable weakness that Alphard must have anticipated. So why had Daisuke been chosen? Stanley felt like he was right back where he started. If Maria hadn't mistaken for Hitomi in the first place, the situation wouldn't have become nearly so complicated. That was the thing that really made him wonder. Daisuke may have been an amateur, but would he really have made such a rudimentary mistake when his daughter's life was on the line? Maybe that... Did the other decision we make also say that we're back where we started?
Yeah, I think all three said that.
All three? Okay. Well, let's hold it and check out this one. He was going to release her at some later time. He was going to release her at some later time. Since he'd gone to the trouble of infecting her with the virus, it only made sense. And Stanley could only think of one reason to release an infected Maria. To turn Shibuya into ground zero for a pandemic that would sweep through all of Tokyo. A virus with a mortality rate of 100% would have spread throughout the region before anyone even realized it. It would be impossible even to calculate the scope of such a disaster. First, it would run the circuit around the Yamanote line, and then if any of the infected happened to head to the airports at either Haneda or Narita, the virus would spread throughout Japan and the rest of the world in a matter of hours. But that hadn't come to pass. They'd managed to secure Maria before she could develop symptoms and become infectious. Is that because we were better than Alphard? No, that can't be it. Alphard wasn't the sort to commit such indiscriminate acts of terror. The threat of the infection was spreading, horrific as it was. Was likely just cover to hide some other scheme. But then, what was the ultimate goal? Stanley still didn't have enough clues to go on. There we go. This is the new thing that happens. Stanley made his way behind the stack of cardboard boxes.
Wait, that seemed kind of arbitrary, though. We just had to get the wrong answer? Because we said that, and it was like, no, you're wrong.
I think
right?
The thing is, it had to be... He didn't come to a conclusion on this one, so he decided to look for more clues. Where the other ones, he came to a conclusion and was like, alright, I'm doing a thing. And stopped searching.
Alright, I get it now. So now we're back with these boxes.
Spotted something that had fallen on the floor. It was a cell phone. Next to it was a woman's handbag. Woman's. Stanley unzipped it. It held a jumble of makeup, tissues, and other personal effects, but nothing at all unusual. If he was going to find any clues here, it would probably have to be from the cell phone. He tried turning it on. There was no response. It appeared to be broken.
It's a good thing you're at an electronics store.
Let me see that.
Daisuke said from behind him.
I'll see if I can fix it.
Do you think you can? Stanley asked as he handed it over.
I won't know until I try. But that sign out front says that I run an electronics shop. The sign that it's not for show.
No.
Turning his attention back to the handbag, Stanley searched it more thoroughly and found a photograph tucked inside that he'd overlooked on his first inspection. What the hell? He stared at the image, swallowing the lump in his throat. Gulp. What do you think's on the photograph?
I don't know. Something that makes me laugh every time I look at it, probably.
Alright. So, Tateno has changed. His timeline's changed. Has anyone else changed? Ooh. Yeah. Okay, so it's up to you. Who do you think has a jump to Stanley? Wait, do we know? Is there a jump here, actually? No. Okay. Yeah, I'll leave the choice to you.
I'm gonna say Tateno.
Well, let me see if it does the animation on the main menu. We get to see his animation.
Oh, yeah.
He points a gun at us. Tateno's phone rang, and he picked up as he sped onward. Oh yeah, this is Kajiwara. How much farther? No, that's as far as I can go. What's his voice again?
Were you able to break through safely?
It was the voice of Detective Kajiwara. Tateno had thought he was at the Osawa residence.
That patrol car just now. That was you?
A call came in from Task Force HQ saying that Kano had found Maria. I figured maybe Kano was planning to take her to Okoshi Pharmaceutical, and so I thought he'd need to make his way through one of the checkpoints here. But the fact that it was you, Detective Tateno, now that was quite unexpected.
He let out a weak chuckle.
Kajiwara, are you hurt?
No, don't worry about me. Just please help Maria. I made a promise to her father that I'd save his daughter, no matter what.
Tateno could hear the energy draining from Kajiwara's voice.
Understood. I'll keep that promise for you then.
Thank you.
The line went dead. He crashed headlong through that barricade. There was no way he'd come out of that uninjured.
I'm sorry, Kajiwara.
Tateno said to himself under his breath.
And thank you.
He bit his lip, then stepped hard on the gas again. Okay. Alright. It was just another keep out.
Cool. I love the keep outs.
So, shall we continue Achi and Kano? See if they blow up again?
Yeah.
Which one?
Let's do the Atch Dog.
Achitize me, Captain. Oh, we're getting right into the toss. The vials in Alphard's hand went sailing high into the air.
Look out! Catch him! Catch him!
Achi gestured for his comrades to fan out across the open space. The vials seemed to almost vanish against the backdrop of the evening sky. How many of them had this guy even thrown? There was no way to tell for sure. And if even one of them broke open, it would be a death sentence for Shibuya. They had to make sure they caught them all. Oh! Spinning around in the midst of the chaos, Achi saw Susumu catch one vial deftly. Wow. Many of these other gang members appear to have done the same.
There's one more! Over there!
The desperate shout had come from Hitomi. Oops, that was supposed to be me. She'd spotted a vial sailing in a high arc away from all the SOS members.
Damn it!
Achi launched into motion, ignoring the searing pain in his leg, but the falling vial was so far away. They were done for. He was sure of it. A pair of hands shot out and safely grabbed the falling vial. It was Kano. The tension drained from Achi's body.
We did it. We didn't break a single one.
Kano cursed under his breath as he stared out into the throng. Alphard had disappeared. They hadn't been able to capture him after all, which meant they'd lost their last chance to get the password for the lab. They hadn't just lost, they'd failed utterly.
Wait, is this Achi or?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Achi. This is his point of view.
Right. But we did everything we could have, right? We didn't make any wrong calls. We'll just have to leave everything to Kanan. Have to trust that she'll be able to save Mario.
Achi stared up into the night sky, trying to reassure himself. Alright. Well, nobody blew up that time.
Okay. It's still bad though.
Yeah, it's still bad. I wonder if this will also end badly. I remember when I first played this and got to this point, hitting a lot of bad ends. So that's probably what's going to be happening. You already read this, right? Here we go. Here we go. I can see it.
What did... Oh, pardon me. What a shame.
Palmer swung his right arm up high.
Yeah.
Everyone watched in dismay as his hand shot up. The vials he'd been holding sailed upward against the backdrop of the evening sky.
Look out.
Achi shouted.
Catch him, catch him.
The
So
hurtling...
this is the same?
Yeah, it looks the same. Vials scattered and began to fall. It seemed impossible that Kano's team would be able to keep them all from shattering against the ground, although this is from Kano's point of view. The SOS members fanned out, positioning themselves as best they could to intercept the falling vials. Kano likewise prepared to catch one that was heading straight toward him. As he did, he caught sight of Palmer speeding away. Kano made up his mind on the spot. There was only one right call here, and he needed to make it. Okay, we got a choice. We can protect the lives of people or chase after Palmer.
Let's chase after Palmer.
He had to chase after Palmer. It didn't matter if he didn't grab the vial. Something about the way this was playing out made Kano sure of it. Calling upon all his rugby training, he broke into a sprint. Deftly dodging through the crowd, Kano kept Palmer in sight. He would catch him. One way or another, he was going to bring this bastard down. Steadily, he gained on his quarry. At last, he drew within striking range and immediately dived into an expert tackle. He caught Palmer around the waist. Their bodies collided with violent force.
Oof.
Palmer went down flailing and hit the pavement hard. Even then, he tried to resist, but Kano straddled him and held him down.
Tell me the password.
Kano snarled. The kidnapper sneered triumphantly.
You made the wrong choice. Wrong choice. The UI is out now. Now nobody can be saved. You've just killed everyone in the city. No,
Kano shot back.
nobody's gonna die. And what makes you so sure of that? The way you fled the scene just now. If the virus had really been in those vials, you could never have hoped to escape infection. Running off on foot would be pointless.
Palmer said nothing.
Which means there was no virus in those... Oh. Which means there was no virus in those vials. They were just a decoy in order to buy you time to escape.
Now Palmer gritted his teeth and glared up at Kano. The look on his face confirmed the detective's hunch.
And more importantly, it was your eyes. He didn't have the eyes, my man. He was putting his life on the line. My eyes? Who do you think you are, Sherlock Holmes? My countryman? I know full well we'll look in a man's eyes when he's willing to die.
Do you think in the original Japanese they used Sherlock Holmes? Or did they use
Yeah, I think
like Detective Conan
probably.
or something?
Detective what?
Conan.
Isn't he a barbarian?
It's like there's this series,
You're thinking of
Japanese
what
series
detective?
where it's been going on since the 80s, I think. But the premise is like there's this, I guess he's a detective that for some reason turned into a kid, a little kid. But he still does detective work as a kid. But it's like he has to pretend to be a kid and like I don't know. I haven't seen too much of it, but that's basically it. This detective becomes a kid.
I guess that they went with Sherlock Holmes because I think that's like an internationally recognizable property. It sounds like a more
That's true.
appropriate.
And Leland Palmer is probably English.
But I can't say for sure.
Were you saying something before though?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. In the back of his mind, Kano replayed the moment when Tateno, doused in gasoline, marched into that financial office to talk down a would-be arsonist.
Evan, password. Give it to me, now!
Kano tightened his grip on Palmer's collar, but the man just gazed back at him with an icy glare.
Let me have Hitomio Sawa's blood. That was our original deal.
Kano wasn't surprised. He'd known it wouldn't be easy to get him to talk. Maybe it really would be impossible to strike a deal without Cannon. But if getting her on the phone wasn't an option, Kano had to figure out something else. Sweat beaded on his brow as he cast about for ideas. Then he happened to catch sight of a car that had been overturned by an accident nearby. Gasoline had spilled from the vehicle, creating a broad, dark puddle on the pavement. Kano took out his handcuffs, then cupped Palmer's arm to his own.
Come with me.
Jerking his captive back to his feet, Kano led him over to the car. Then, without hesitation, he sat down in the pool of gasoline. Yanking on the handcuffs, he pulled Palmer down beside him. Kano pulled a lighter from his pocket. Palmer snorted.
Just what's this supposed to be, hmm? Tell me the password. Or else what? You light the gas, you'll be burned to a crisp yourself. That's how they say a potato chip. So this were an American English, you would say you'll be burned to a chip.
You'll be burned to a chip yourself.
But in English that would mean a French fry.
Wow. So they just say fry? You'll be burned to a fry yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
Kano heard the casual desperation in his own voice.
What the hell are you thinking?
The smile vanished from Palmer's face. Kano scowled down him. Ooh.
Uh, even if I die, my friends will avenge me. Even if I die, my friends will avenge me.
Kano met Palmer's stare dead on. Palmer and Kano locked eyes, both refusing to back down. The scent of gasoline fumes filled the air around them. Kano knew that the slightest spark could set off a massive fireball. Calmly, he flicked the lighter on.
You can't be serious.
Palmer's eyes fixed on the tiny flicker of flame.
The password. You value your life so little. The password.
In his mind, Kano could see the pages of the Dick Diary, clear as day. Dick Dictum number 1. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. Palmer glared in defiance. Kano brought the lighter closer and closer to the gasoline. He could practically feel his own life growing shorter as his hand descended. And yet he felt no trace of fear. His body was numb, his senses strangely distant. Time seemed to slow, the world around him dissolved into a blur. He was surprised at how calm, how remote he felt here in the midst of this life-or-death confrontation. And then, far in the depths of Palmer's eyes, he saw the barest hint of doubt. He fixed his gaze on that point of weakness and did not look away. Palmer's shoulders slumped perceptibly. Now Kano was certain of it. This was a man who'd never put his life on the line before. Shizuo's words sounded in the back of his mind.
You need a cool mind, but a fiery spirit. A detective without both of those is worth nothing.
Not a fiery body, too, Kano. Come on.
Let me go. Promise to let me go, and I'll tell you. Is that your answer? I don't think you quite understand the situation here.
Kano brought the flame still closer to the gasoline. Palmer's eyes went wide. No longer was he able to hide his trembling uncertainty.
All right, I'll tell you. Just put that thing out. Password first.
His voice a strangled snarl, Palmer gave him the password. What do you think the password is?
Password 123.
Oh, they didn't say it. Kano extinguished the lighter. Pulling out his cell phone, Kano dialed up Osawa. As he did, he recalled his last exchange with Stanley at the electronics shop. Alright, we got our jump to Stanley.
Looks like we'll be able to have that beer together after all.
Let me check the time on this jump. Yeah. Nice. But Osawa didn't answer. Uh-oh. Kano guessed immediately that something was amiss. Who said that? Oh, that was Achi.
You detective.
Achi's voice was full of worry.
Yeah. I've got Stanley on the line. He says that Detective Tateno...
Kano didn't get to hear the rest of Achi's words. A thunderous blast hurled him to the pavement. Where'd the explosion come from? His lighter certainly hadn't set the gasoline ablaze. Kano hadn't been that clumsy. So what had happened? Only one possible answer came to mind. Palmer had blown himself up. But that only confused Kano further. His captive had already given up the password. What would prompt him to set off a bomb at this juncture? As he was losing consciousness, Kano continued to rack his brain. But he found no answers. Another mysterious explosion. Ooh. Achi is also open. Oh yeah, because we changed the timeline instead of Kano catching it. So it's up to you. We can jump to Stanley or presumably watch Achi blow up. Or see if like a choice that he makes changes that.
Let's jump to Stanley, I suppose.
Alright. Turning his attention back to the handbag, Stanley searched it more thoroughly and found a photograph tucked inside that he'd overlooked on his first inspection.
What the hell?
He stared at the picture, swallowing the lump in his throat. It was a photo of Maria standing next to another young girl. There was something written in marker on the back. Me and Kanan, 7:30.
That's when Jeopardy comes on.
Stanley hurriedly flipped the photo back over and looked at it again.
What does this mean?
The girl in the photo with Maria looked nothing like the Kanan who had been there at Endo Electronics, who had left with Maria and Tateno just a few minutes ago. But the girl they were working with wasn't Kanan. But if the girl they were working with wasn't Kanan, then who was she? No. Stanley felt his blood run cold. Could she be... Was she Alphard? The more he thought about it, the more it all added up. Assuming Alphard were masquerading as Kanan, the whole sequence of events suddenly began to make sense. She was strikingly audacious and fiendishly clever. But she hadn't outmaneuvered them just yet. As luck would have it, they still had a chance to stop her. And at long last, Stanley could see the outline of Alphard's plan. Her goal was to get the antiviral. But extracting the DDS from Itomi's blood wasn't enough. Okoshi Pharmaceuticals still had the drug at their laboratory. The antiviral's value came specifically from having a monopoly on it, which meant that, in addition to obtaining the drug herself, Alphard also needed to destroy Okoshi's research facilities. That was the crux of her plan. The problem was finding a way to infiltrate those facilities. In all likelihood, Alphard's scheme went something like this. Have Mariosawa kidnapped, then infected with the Uwa virus. After that, eliminate Tanaka. Once Osawa learned that Maria had been infected with the virus, he was certain to use the antiviral on her. But he'd need his partner Tanaka in order to access the storage facility, and Tanaka was dead. That was why Alphard had been masquerading as Kanan. Kanan was Maria's friend and an expert at hacking passwords. If she could secure Osawa's trust, he would let her into the research facility in order to carry out the hack. That's why Alphard, in the guise of Kanan, had saved Itomi's life repeatedly. Getting Itomi to trust her would likewise earn the trust of her father. There were still some finer details that remained a mystery. For instance, how was Alphard going to destroy the lab? Still, Stanley could look into that once he had her in custody. He needed to move quickly and stop her from ever getting into the Akoshi facility.
I fixed it.
Daisuke approached Stanley and held out Maria's cell phone.
Well, as best as I could at any rate. It looks like it'll get a signal, but whatever data was on it is all gone.
I see. Stanley took the phone and put it in his pocket. He'd hoped he might be able to learn something useful from it, but luck evidently wasn't on his side. He was just going to have to go up against Alphard with what he already had. Now that he'd guessed what was really going on, Stanley went to talk to Kano. "You need to go to the Scramble without me," he said.
What?
Kano was visibly shocked.
Where's this coming from all of a sudden?
"Please, don't ask me to explain. Something else has come up, and I have to see to it." Stanley hated having to do this. He wished he could explain everything, but if he made any unusual moves now, there was a risk that Alphard would pick up on it. It was better to keep his companions in the dark, just in case.
I understand.
Kano said.
Do what you have to and come back soon.
"I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more."
It's alright. I'll find a way to get by.
Kano gave him a thumbs up. The sight brought back some painful memories. Up until just a few hours ago, Stanley had instinctively seen Kano as too naive, and now he finally knew why. Kano was just like his younger brother, Frank. Do we have to watch this flashback again? Yeah, I can't skip forward. They might have looked very different, but in the way they mixed up their responsibilities with their personal feelings, they were totally alike. Stanley couldn't discount that naivete.
Oh, wait, can I do a cameo as the narrator?
Okay.
Since you've read this like 3 times.
Alright.
In the end, it was all a part of the human condition.
Oh yeah, this is
Wait,
Frank.
this is Frank. And Frank sounds like Leland Palmer, right?
Yeah.
Jack, are you really okay with this? Frank cast an anxious look at his older brother as they made their way onto the University of Chicago. Into...
Was there a tip before? Oh, I don't remember this part. Talking about...
For those of you who don't know what the University of Chicago is, that's a private university in Chicago, Illinois. Lauda is one of the foremost research institutions in the United States. And they've had more than 90 folks there who have been awarded the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
The school's made a bunch of contributions to the world beyond simple academics, including construction of the first artificial nuclear reactor, Chicago Pile 1, and they have a School of Economics.
Monetarism. "It's my responsibility to look after you.
Stanley told him.
As long as you take your studying seriously, I'm all for it."
Frank had been worrying about tuition costs as he prepared for college. After losing their parents 5 years earlier, the two had struggled to get by. Yeah, but... Stanley set both hands on his brother's shoulders.
"Listen to me, Frank. You're my brother, and I care about you. I just want whatever you do to be something you can be proud of."
All right, Jack, I hear you, and thanks.
"Kano, promise me one thing.
What's that?
Once this is all over, you'll go have a beer with me.
Sure, all right.
That's a date now, remember."
Kano flashed him a grateful smile. And in that smile, Stanley again saw a little something of Frank.
You saw a little Frank in that smile.
Got some Frank in your teeth. All right, I'll pass the whatever with the buck back to you.
Okay. Looks like we also got our jump back to Tateno, I assume. Because he was at a keep out. Hurrying out of Endo Electronics, Stanley dialed up Tateno as he ran along. Listen carefully. Your life may depend on it, he said as soon as Tateno picked up. He knew that the detective wouldn't be able to respond openly since Alphard was right there with him. Did you see that coming, by the way?
That Kanan was Alphard?
Potentially.
No, I think my last guess was that Stanley was Alphard. Even though Kanan had some lines that kind of gave it away, like, not Kanan, Kanan, what's her name? Kanan. Like, the time that she was Mario was like, "You're so cool," and she's like, "Oh, I'm really not that cool. Like, I used to do terrorism." Do you remember that? And she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I'm a terrorist." Like, so maybe we should have picked up on that, but I don't know.
Okay. On the spur of the moment, Stanley devised a simple code for how he should answer yes or no. He told Tateno to respond with, "That's right," to mean yes, and "will do" to mean no. There was no time for anything more complex. Right now, Stanley just needed to stop Alphard from getting into the lab. He quickly explained his suspicions about Kanan. Tateno sounded very distinctly unnerved. "At any rate," Stanley said, "you need to find a way to turn back without her realizing what's going on."
Will do.
Tateno replied. So, he was going to head to the laboratory despite Stanley's instructions. Saving Maria is your top priority, isn't it?
That's right.
The detective's affirmation was firm. All right then, guess I'll have to head that way myself. In the meantime, do not let her inside that lab.
That's right.
Tateno was no match for Alphard. If she figured out what was going on, she'd probably kill him on the spot. Reassurance or encouragement would be meaningless right now. Instead, Stanley left Tateno with one final warning.
Just shoot her.
If it comes down to it, just shoot her. If you hesitate for a moment, she'll have you dead. Tateno hung up without saying anything. How did that car get on its side? The area around
probably
Donzaku
crashed.
was in disarray. The government had declared a state of high alert, and the people on the street were milling about around uneasily, unsure just what was going on. I feel like we saw this before, right? We know what a state of high alert is.
Yeah.
The main roads had been blocked off and automobiles and motorcycles were at a standstill. Some vehicles had overturned on the curb in an apparent attempt to circumvent the blockade. Any moment now, Kano's team would be putting their plan into action at the Scramble. Stanley wasn't sure who they might have gotten to help, but Kano was certain to put them to good use. Please, stay safe. Don't you dare die on me. Oh, did you see Stanley in that image?
I see Stanley? No, I don't think so.
We could have played a little, Where's Stanley?
Oh. Rats.
Stanley prayed silently as he darted underneath the railway overpass. He made it to his car, still parked on roadside, and unfortunately beyond the blocked-off area. Jumping in, he sped off toward the laboratory. Vroom, vroom. As he drove along, Stanley again tried to deduce Alphard's plan of action. If Alphard herself was on the way to the lab now, then what was the objective of the fake who'd been sent to the Scramble? A call came in from Tateno. Stanley here. He picked up quickly, but as he did, he wondered. Why was Tateno calling him? Alphard was right there. There was no way the detective should be risking a phone call. What's going on? Tateno said nothing. Stanley repeated the question.
What's going on?
Still, Tateno did not reply.
What's going on?
Stanley's apprehension spread like a droplet of ink in water.
Hey, has something happened? Hey, answer me.
The call cut out. Stanley hurriedly dialed Tateno's number, but he couldn't get through. Something had gone badly wrong, he was sure of it. Had he been too arrogant in thinking that he might be a match for Alphard? His worries turned to the team at the Scramble. What if they had walked into a trap? Figuring that it would be too dangerous to call Kano in the midst of the negotiations, Stanley instead dialed up Achi. Ooh, we got a little jump to Achi.
Mr. Stanley? What's going on?
To Stanley's relief, it sounded like things down at the Scramble had gone well enough, so he asked Achi to put him on the phone with Kano.
Yeah, give me a sec.
The young man said.
It is you, isn't it?
No, I think this is still Achi, because he's calling for Kano,
Oh.
right?
Oh. Detective!
Stanley could hear Achi shouting on the other end.
I've got Stanley on the line. He said that Detective Tateno...
There was a sudden tremendous boom, and then the call cut out. Stanley's jaw dropped. He felt his mind emptied out by despair. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't even bring himself to scream. All he could do was curse inwardly again and again. Stanley slammed his fist into the steering wheel as hard as he could. Then he did it again and again, and again and again and again. He didn't stop even when his fists were marred with blood. This kind of that music was a little whimsical, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Whimsical. A bit whimsical for that ending.
Doot 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 doot.
Yeah, what is this? Fantasia?
Alright, so he's at a bad end. We got Achi. I believe we have a jump to Tateno as well. But it does sound like Achi blows up.
Alright. Yeah,
Unless
so
you
then
want to
let's
see
do-
Achi blow up.
For like the fourth time now. Let's do Tateno. Let's get in with the tame dog, as they call him.
Tatendog?
Is that what they...
Nintendo?
It's a tame dog, yeah.
Nintendogs.
Nintendo, yeah.
Boing. Once they'd made it past Shibuya Station, the roads were relatively clear. They ought to make it to the lab in no time. Oh. The phone rang again. It was Stanley.
What's going on?
He asked the American.
Listen carefully. Your life may depend on it. I'm going to ask you some questions. If the answer is yes, say,
That's right.
if it's no, reply with,
Will do.
For a moment, Tateno was bewildered. From the urgency in Stanley's voice, however, he realized that there was some kind of emergency.
Basically, that's right.
He said after a moment's thought. That ought to let Stanley know that he understood the code.
is Kanan with you right now?
That's right.
That Kanan is an imposter.
Tateno gripped his phone more tightly, hoping it would stop the trembling in his hand.
It's her,
Stanley said.
she's Alphard.
The detective had to stifle a gasp of alarm.
I don't have time to fill you in on the details, but I've got some pretty incontrovertible evidence. You need to turn back, now.
Tateno struggled to come to terms with what he'd just heard. He glanced at Kanan through the rearview mirror. Ooh, their faces are pretty close. She was holding Maria tightly in her arms. Was this really all an act on her part? And if so, why? There was only one possible reason. If Kanan really was Alphard, then she had only one goal. She was pretending to help Maria in order to get into the lab, where she would be able to steal the antiviral. But wait, hold on. Kanan was Maria's friend, wasn't she? Hitomi had said as much herself.
Kanan is my sister's friend.
Maria certainly knew what her own friend looked like, and since it was obvious that Maria might be present, it didn't make sense for a clever imposter to pretend to be Kanan. Or did it? When Kanan showed up on the roof of South Hill making her surprise attack on Tateno, Maria had taken off down the staircase without ever looking back. And when she'd turned up at the endoelectronics workroom, Maria had already collapsed and fallen unconscious. Tateno felt a chill spreading through his body. As far as he knew, Maria had never actually seen the girl who was now sitting in the back seat. But then, what about Hitomi? Shouldn't she?
Wait, but is that really true? That Maria never saw Kanan? I thought they talked and she had all those flashbacks and she was like, I remember everything now.
He's talking about the person that's sitting in the back seat right now. That Kanan.
Wait, hasn't seen that Kanan?
The person that is masquerading as Kanan right now, that they're assuming is.
But
an
didn't
imposter
she
Kanan.
intervene and save Maria a bunch of times, or was that all just Hitomi?
I think that was Hitomi.
So if Maria just wakes up right now, she's like screwed?
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know you. Who are you?
But then what about Hitomi? Shouldn't she have known what Kanan looked like? Tateno tried to remember just what Hitomi had said.
Kanan is my sister's friend. I just met her for the first time today.
If they'd never met each other before today, then maybe Hitomi didn't know what the real Kanan looked like. That was the only explanation that made sense. So they don't really lay it out, but assuming that this Kanan here is Alphard, she might be hanging around the unconscious Maria to keep her unconscious. She might be doing something to her.
Right.
Hey,
Okay.
Tateno, are you still with me? Stanley sounded like he was on the verge of panic. At any rate, you need to find a way to turn back without her realizing what's going on. Even if Kanan really was Alphard, Tateno had to keep heading toward that lab. He went over the coded responses in his head.
Yes is, that's right, and no is will do. Okay.
Oh, it's right there. It's right there. Yes was that's right, and no was will do.
Will do.
He said. Saving Maria is your top priority, isn't it?
That's right.
Tateno affirmed. Alright then. Guess I'll have to head that way myself. In the meantime, do not let her inside that lab.
Right.
Tateno hung up.
Who was that?
Kanan asked. Tateno felt his heart skip a beat.
Basically, that was Kuzo, that cop from earlier.
He tried to keep his voice as level as possible.
He was worried about us and wanted to check up. Okay.
Kanan muttered, sounding disinterested. Tateno could only hope she hadn't guessed the truth. It felt like the specter of death himself, was breathing down his neck. Even though she's actually breathing down Maria's neck. At last, the minivan arrived at Akoshi Pharmaceutical. Tateno pulled up at the front gate and got out of the vehicle. Off to one side of the entrance was an intercom for contacting the security room.
I'm assuming you've already heard the details from the director.
Tateno barked into the intercom.
Open up.
Who was the guard again? Did I write it down?
I don't remember.
I guess
Probably
it doesn't really
not.
matter. They only have like 2 lines, right? Maybe it was me. I don't know. You can decide.
I'll do it. I'll see like a little intercom like, we haven't heard anything from Director Osawa.
The security guard spat back.
Moreover, the laboratory is currently on lockdown. I'm sorry, but not even Director Osawa is allowed inside.
Is that like a customer service kind of voice you got going on?
No, it's supposed to be like a pilot telling you like, oh, we're gonna take off here at
Oh.
Alphard, you know.
Yeah.
Make sure you buckle in. The weather is nice and sunny, and
And have a good flight. Don't use the bathrooms for things that aren't bodily functions. They're meant for bathroom. That's ridiculous.
Tateno scowled at the intercom in frustration. Then, a car came racing down towards him along the street. The sound of screeching brakes filled the air as the vehicle skidded to a halt, and then Kenji Osawa jumped out from the driver's seat.
Oh yeah.
Osawa rushed over to Tateno, then to Maria, where she lay in the minivan. He looked carefully at his daughter's face.
Oh, thank goodness. She still hasn't gone symptomatic. Mr. Osawa, why aren't people being allowed into the laboratory?
Osawa tilted his head.
They're not.
Tateno explained what the guard had said.
That's ridiculous.
Osawa immediately called the security guard on the intercom. He got the same story.
You've got to be kidding me.
Osawa raged.
I'm the lab director here.
But the security guard wasn't hearing it.
I'm sorry, sir. These orders come from Mr. Makino. No. So am I just supposed to sit out here and watch my daughter die?
Tateno racked his brain for other ideas. Maybe they'd have to climb the gate and break their way in? Then, over the intercom, they heard the sound of a phone ringing in the security room. The security guard answered it without muting the intercom speaker. His voice was faintly audible. He sounded rather deferential. Who in the world could he be talking to? Shizuo? Before Tateno could muse further, the gate suddenly opened.
What? What?
Tateno and Osawa looked at one another in surprise.
I have a message for Dr. Osawa from Mr. Makino.
The security guard said.
From Makino?
Osawa huddled over the intercom and had a brief sotto voce exchange with the guard. Oh yeah, I never really looked that up. I meant to look up what sotto voce means.
What was that all about?
Tateno asked.
It would seem that my wife was able to pull some strings for us.
If you don't know what a wife is... Oh. After Osawa left home, I had a change of heart. Even if it meant losing everything, she decided she wanted to save Maria's life. Although Maria was not Ai's real daughter, it turned out that the time they'd spent living together had sowed the first seeds of a familial bond.
Love that for I.
Alright,
Her heart growing for sizes and whatnot.
Soto Voce. Sotto voce. It's an adverb in a quiet voice as if not to be overheard. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it Latin or Italian or are those the same thing?
Let me see. Yeah, Italian.
Okay.
It's also used as an adjective in a similar way, but like for being sung. Sung or said in a quiet voice. Osawa smiled uncomfortably. Tateno didn't have time to wonder what that might mean.
Oh, pardon me. Is that lock open for us as well?
He asked. The smile disappeared from Osawa's face.
No. She wasn't able to do anything about the final layer of security.
I see. Well, let's regroup inside for now.
Very well.
Osawa said.
By the way, who's going to be hacking the password?
I am.
Kanan replied.
Ah, so you're Kanan. We should get you to the laboratory then.
Osawa began to lead the way inside. Kanan followed. If Kanan really was Alphard, Tateno couldn't let her into that lab. But without getting that lock open, there was no way of getting Maria the antiviral she needed to survive. What was the right call? Should he still pretend to be in the dark and let Kanan try to hack the password?
Okay, I'm trying to be smart here. We can't go anywhere until Stanley gets here.
Alright. They couldn't go anywhere until Stanley got there. Tateno knew exactly what he needed to do.
What's the matter?
Osawa turned and cast a look of confusion back at Tateno and Kanan, both of whom had stopped in their tracks.
We'll wait out here.
Tateno said.
But, I mean, isn't Kanan going to hack the password?
There's been a slight change of plans. Go ahead and wait for us at the lab, Director.
All right. But we don't have much time before Maria develops symptoms. I'll be inside. Please don't keep me waiting too long.
With Maria in his arms and a worried look on his face, Osawa hurried through the gate and disappeared from view.
What do you think you're doing?
Kanan asked, stiffening as Tateno nudged the barrel of his gun against her spine.
Basically, you're Alphard, aren't you? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's no use trying to play dumb. Stanley found proof.
Before he finished speaking, Kanan seemed to disappear from view. She cartwheeled away at blinding speed, too quick for Tateno to keep a bead on her. By the time she righted herself, she'd already drawn a gun of her own. Abruptly, he found himself facing her in a stare-down, weapons aimed at one another. Then Kanan's phone rang, and she reached to answer it.
Don't move.
Tateno roared.
Did you forget the plan? That might be Hitomi calling. I don't care. Don't you move.
If Kanan really was Alphard, the whole plan might be a sham. Tateno kept the barrel of his gun squarely on its mark. Kanan let out a little sigh.
Have you considered that Stanley might be lying to you?
Ooh.
Yes, it's possible. But I need to make sure we avoid a worst case scenario. If you don't let me into the lab, who's gonna hack the password? We've got your little decoy. My friends will get the fake Alphard to cough up the password.
Once her phone had stopped ringing, Kanan sighed again.
And what about Stanley then?
You got a little jump? Alright, never mind.
Is he on his way here? Well, who knows?
Tateno said. At that, Kanan lowered her gun. She seemed disturbingly full of confidence. Kanan flipped open her cell phone.
Who do you think you're calling?
Tateno adjusted his aim, pointing his gun at the young woman's head.
Look, I'm gonna call Hitomi and have her clear up these suspicions you have about me. We don't have time for this right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Kanan stared back at Tateno, cell phone in hand, waiting for his reply.
Let's say this is the sort of nonsense we don't have time for right now. Stop. This is the sort of nonsense we don't have time for right now.
Kanan shook her head, then put her phone away.
If you're really Alphard, then you don't actually need to hack the password.
Tateno said.
I'm guessing you already gotten it from Tanaka. Which means you'll be able to get your hands on the antiviral as soon as you get into that lab.
Kanan didn't so much as flinch.
The only thing stopping you is the antiviral still in Hitomi Osawa's body. Basically, possessing the antiviral and having a monopoly on it are two very different things. You want to eliminate Hitomi. That's why you lured her down to the Scramble. Am I wrong? If that's true, then how am I planning on getting rid of her? Using this so-called substitute Alphard or something? Yes, that's right.
Tateno couldn't be certain, but he couldn't think of any other way. Kanan let out a laugh.
You don't know the first thing about Alphard.
She said.
Alphard keeps the outlines of his plans blurred, so that his deliberate actions just get lumped in with the coincidences. That's the crux of all his plans. That's how he's able to pull off his schemes by himself. He'd never solicit help from a third party.
The words seemed like they were Kanan's, but also seemed like they were Alphard's. With his gun still at the ready, Tateno got out his phone and called Kano. The young detective was quick to pick up.
Detective Tateno, what's going on? You need to get Hitomi Osawa to safety immediately. Alphard isn't trying to get at her blood. He wants her eliminated. What? Hurry. Yes, sir.
Once he'd gotten Kano's confirmation, Tateno hung up. Ooh, we got a little jump to Kano also.
And now your little plan has been foiled.
Tateno said. Kanan snorted.
Has it now? If I really am Alphard, then all I need to do is eliminate you here and get right into that lab.
Even without her gun raised, she still radiated intimidation. Tateno might have had her at gunpoint, but he could feel the threat of her presence like a gathering storm.
Eliminate me.
He said, doing his best to mask any sign of weakness.
You're the one who doesn't have your gun ready. I don't need my gun.
Kanan said simply.
And why is that? Because you can't shoot me. What's that supposed to mean?
Kanan glared sharply at Tateno. Her look pierced him like a blade. Then she quirked an unsettling smile and took a step closer to him.
Don't move.
He warned. Tateno said,
Try anything funny and I'll make sure you regret it. Try anything funny and I'll make sure that you regret it.
He kept his gun trained on the center of her chest.
You can't shoot me.
Kanan took another step closer.
You're still traumatized from that time you let your friend's wife die. How do you know about that?
Tateno was shaking now, his aim wavering.
I heard you talking with the younger detective up on that rooftop.
That was right. She had been there.
Yeah, pardon me. Woo. I'll have to edit that out in post. A little sneeze.
Gazoon tight.
Thank you. Is this Kanan?
I think so. Yeah, you
Let's
nailed it.
test my theory out.
Kanan pointed her index finger at her own heart.
If you think I'm Alphard, then shoot me right here. Huh?
The corner of her mouth twisted up.
You can't do it, can you?
Tateno's gun hand shook all the more.
You're afraid to pull the trigger.
It was as if her words were a spell she was... It was as if her words were a spell she was casting over him.
You can hardly even stand the thought of pointing your gun at someone.
Tateno shook its head violently back and forth, but he couldn't get Kanan's words out of his head. Oh, I guess this is Stanley. If it comes down to it, just shoot her. If you hesitate for a moment, she'll have you dead. That's what Stanley had said, and he was right.
Don't hesitate. Don't think.
This was Alphard, a sadistic terrorist. He just needed to trust himself and pull the trigger. Pull it! Pull it! There was a horrid, visceral sound. Gastric fluids rushed up to Tateno's throat. He pitched forward onto his hands and knees and vomited on the spot. The sensation of pulling the trigger, the recoil in the wake of the shot, it was exactly as it had been all those years ago. He never wanted to fire a gun again. At this point, he'd probably never be able to.
Where were you even aiming?
The voice had come from right in front of him. He looked up to see Kanan standing right there. His heart began hammering like mad. This was the end. He braced himself for oblivion, even as his body cried out to survive. There was the dull roar of a gunshot, and then silence.
No Donkey Kong music this time.
Yeah, no Donkey Kong music. Alright, So, it's past an hour. I'm pretty sure we still got quite a bit more to do, because this is only like, we're only scratching the surface of this last hour.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll have to. We may have to come back to this next week.
Got any thoughts, impressions? Is that really Alphard?
I think it is really Alphard. I don't think Stanley's Alphard anymore because like they gave him so much of his own perspective. It would be kind of disingenuous to then make him Alphard.
I've seen that done in the game. There's this other game. I'm not gonna mention too many details. I don't want to spoil it. But like, you play as multiple characters. Like you jump through the different POVs, and then one of them is revealed to have been like the actual villain, and it just felt weird. Like, I played
Because his POV was fake. Or did they make it so that it all makes sense if you go back and look at it?
It kind of makes sense, but like, I guess you never really heard too much of his thoughts when you played as him.
Oh.
But yeah, it caught me by surprise, and I was like, "This is the guy. This is the guy we were after." But yeah, still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that here. But I haven't been right yet, so
That is
you never
true.
know.
It could still be, Frank.
I don't think it's Frank. I don't think it's Frank though.
He could be like, "Good day, everybody. 'Tis I, Frank Alphard, as it were."
It could be the exasperated maid, not maid,
The waitress.
waitress, yeah, from the Cafe Lautrec.
That's true. Working together with Shizuo.
Yeah.
Well, as we're winding down, do you got any interesting closing topics, or should we just switch out movie titles with Kate?
I I have an idea.
All right.
I'm gonna put you in a hot seat for a second.
Oh boy. Ooh, this seat is hot.
Okay. I'm on the Reader's Digest
Oh.
website.
Okay.
Alright. We got oh shoot. Stop. Click on the thing. Alright, we got animal puns.
Okay. And I gotta guess them, huh?
What do you call an animal you keep in your car?
Ooh. An animal you keep in your car. My first instinct is like escargot, but I don't think that's right. Is that right?
No, it's not escargot.
Is escargot the name of the snail, or is it the name of the dish?
The dish.
Okay then. Animal that you put in your car or keep in your car?
Keep in your car.
Let's see. Is it a horse?
No, it's not a
Like
horse.
horsepower?
No. It's a car pet.
Oh.
That's kind of like the commentator one.
Yeah.
It just came out to a different third word.
Carp.
All right. All right. This is a good one too. Why did the crab never share?
Why did the crab never share? Because it was shellfish.
Right.
I
All
got-
right. You're 1 for 2. Yeah, you're 1 for 2.
Nice.
Speaking of shellfish, where do they go to borrow money?
So there are different ways this could go. You know, you've got like you could just say like the bank, you know, or is there another way? I was thinking something about sand dollars, cause that's dumb. That's like a dumb direction to take it, and this is Reader's Digest.
I'll give you a hint. Neither one of those is what you're looking for.
Oh. What is the question again? Shellfish keep their
Where
money
does shellfish go to borrow money?
to borrow money?
Yeah.
Oh, is it a loan shark?
No, that would be a fine answer though.
Darn,
But then it would probably just be where the fish go to borrow money.
that's true. A lone clam.
No, they go to the prawn broker.
Oh.
Shout out to prawns.
Prawn.
Alright, you're 1 for 3. Okay. What did the dolphin say after he accidentally swam into another sea creature?
What did the dolphin say when he accidentally swam into another sea creature? Alright, my first guess, is it,
No, that would be a lot funnier than what they put here.
Alright, dolphin. Why a dolphin? What about dolphins? What did the dolphin say when it swam into another sea creature? What types of dolphins are there? There's the bottlenose.
Pardon me.
To be honest, that's the only one I know. Bottlenose. That's coming to mind right now. What did it say? It probably doesn't have to do with dolphins. It's probably just like, you know.
It has something
like
to
my
do with-
bad. My bad or something.
It's not my bad. You're on the right track.
My blad.
No. No. It's because you're saying about a specific type of dolphins, but you were actually supposed to get less specific.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
because
like I didn't do it on porpoise or something?
That's exactly what it says. Yes, I didn't do it on purpose. All right, I'm gonna count that because you got it with a hint. So this is the last one. You're 2 for 4. So we're gonna see if you end up
Oh boy.
with a winning record. Okay, that one's too specific.
Give
I'm
us
not gonna
give us
ask
like a
that.
really lame one.
Okay, I'm looking for one that's extra.
I like the sound of that.
Why do seals? It's not a pun though.
Oh.
I'm just going to tell you that right up front. It's more of a lateral thinking. Okay. Why do seals swim in salt water?
Why do seals swim in salt water?
It is in no way a pun. It's just a regular bad joke.
Why do seals swim in salt water? So they can taste better. Why do seals swim in salt water? And it's not a pun.
It's not a pun. The answer just starts with because.
Because they eat saltwater fish.
No, it's because pepper water makes them sneeze.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's bad, and you were like just never in a million years gonna come up with it because it's so like out of left field.
And it's not a pun.
It's not a pun. I warned you about that though.
Yeah, you warned me about it. Wow. But, you know, fish can swim in pepper water because they don't have to worry about sneezing.
Yeah, fish can't sneeze. All right, that was pretty good though. Two out of
5.
2 out of 4, 2 out of 5. Yeah, the fifth one was kind of a pretty curveball there.
That was a pretty fun little section. We're probably going to have more of those. How much longer do you think until the end of this main story?
Now I don't know. Judging by what you said, and stuff, I would say like 3 episodes.
3 more episodes.
We actually,
right now?
yeah, I'm gonna say we lost an episode because last time I said 2 episodes.
Yeah, I guess there is a bunch of like, because they definitely like up the bad endings in the in this
Yeah.
section. So there's a lot
Yeah,
of
definitely.
rereading, I suppose. So it could be that long. But who knows? We'll find out. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will see you guys next time.
See you, folks.